The winner of this comparison, which is really close by the way, is the... Hey guys, this is JP's LEGO Reviews. Today, I'm going to go through comparing the LEGO Technic Porsche 911 RSR set number 42056 and compare it to the Bugatti Chiron set number 42083. In this comparison, I'm going to basically compare the displayability of these two sets, the realism of these two sets, the building experience of these two sets, the value proposition of these two sets, and finally the functionality of these two sets. So let's break it down. What are my thoughts when it comes to the displayability of these two LEGO sets here? Now, when looking at displayability, I'm basically looking at how each set is, how well it displays. I'm not looking at how realistic that is, that's in a separate section, but just how looks good on display. And I think the better set that looks better on display is the Porsche, and the reason why is it's more of a wow factor because of the color. It's an orange car, meanwhile the Bugatti Chiron, it's definitely a more muted color where it has a light blue and a dark blue sort of half-half color scheme, and those two both pop out a lot less than orange, which is why the Porsche is a better displayable car, but they're both still very displayable LEGO sets and they still look awesome on display. But now, let's move on to the realism of these two sets. Now, displayability does not equal realism, and this couldn't be true enough for these two LEGO sets. The Porsche is more displayable, but the Bugatti is more realistic, and here's the reason why. The Bugatti is much better shaped than the Porsche, and that's simply just due to the fact that the Bugatti was released 2 years later than the Porsche, and the Bugatti is a lot better sculpted, it's a lot more covered up in a more normal way. Meanwhile, the Porsche has some pretty obvious gaps when comparing the two, and overall, especially with the back end, the Bugatti Chiron looks very, very seamless and very accurate. Meanwhile, with the Porsche, it looks accurate to an extent, but it's not as accurate as the Bugatti simply because of building techniques that they were used, and modern day building techniques, or really 2 years more of building technique innovation, made the Bugatti better than the Porsche 911. And also you have to remember that the 911 was the first ever of this large car series to come out. But yeah, the Bugatti is definitely more realistic, especially on the inside as well. But now, let's move on to the building experience of these two sets. Now, which LEGO set here has a better building experience? Well, they are basically equally the same sized, but I'm going to give this to the Bugatti Chiron, and the reason why I give it to the Bugatti Chiron is that while building it, firstly, you do actually get to see the engine after it's built as well. Meanwhile, with the Porsche, it basically completely disappears. Also, with the Bugatti, you're doing a lot more sculpting, and you get to see how the Bugatti goes from obviously nothing into what it is as you're building it, and it's a more richer building experience simply because there's more detail to the building experience. The Porsche is still a very good building experience, and it is quite a close category, but for this specific category, I do have to give it to the Bugatti. But now, let's look at the value proposition of these two LEGO sets. Now, which LEGO set here has a better value proposition? Well, this is quite difficult, because both of them feel like they have the sort of the same amount of value proposition, and the Bugatti is maybe 800, well not 800, but 80 to say $100, depending on your currency, more expensive than the Porsche. It could be 50 to 100 depending on your currency as well, but do you actually get 80 or 50 or 100 more of your currency more with the Bugatti Chiron than with the Porsche? And I'm going to have to say no. The reason why I believe the Porsche is a better value for money is for $100 more, in my case in Australia, but in probably the US it's maybe a $50 US difference. But for the extra amount that you're paying, you're getting a more well-sculpted vehicle, but when it comes to really the building experience and everything that goes along with it, it's not worth the extra amount. At most, maybe it's in Australia, it would be worth an extra $50, but $100 for what you're getting, it just doesn't cut. Simply because with the Bugatti, it's essentially the same size. It's a little bit more dense, and you're getting the same building experience. It's a little bit better. It's improved, but it's not what I would say improved enough to be selling for $100 more, which is why the Porsche is a better value for money. But now, let's look at the functionality of these two sets. When it comes to the functionality of these two sets, it's a bit difficult because they both are so similar. But which set here is more functional, or which one has more functions? And that's a really difficult question because they're so similar. They're so similar, but if you're looking at it purely as a numbers game, the Bugatti is the winner only because, and there's only really one reason for this, the key that comes with the Bugatti Chiron can actually lift and lower the spoiler. Yeah, that's all it's coming down to, the spoiler. But most of everything else is the same. You can shift gears, you can set the car to neutral, reverse, or drive. You can steer it with the steering wheel, and the pistons go only when it's either in drive or reverse. It can't go when it's neutral, and at the same time, it goes a little bit faster when, you shift gears. But when it really comes down to it, they both are basically the same when it comes to functionality, and the only difference is the fact that you can move the spoiler with the Bugatti Chiron, which is why it's the winner. But now, let's move on to my final thoughts on these two sets. Now, what are my final thoughts on the Lego Porsche 911 GT3 RS versus Bugatti Chiron comparison? Well, it's difficult, but it comes down to one little factor when it comes to this comparison. And that simply is, which one is an overall better set? Not talking about anything super individual here, but which set is simply better? And if you're looking at it that way, the winner of this comparison, which is really close by the way, is the Bugatti Chiron. The reason why the Bugatti Chiron is better as a Lego set here between the two is because it's simply better to build. It looks better, it's more realistic, you get a more detailed building experience. The value proposition is pretty minimal when you really think about it. It's not a huge deal breaker if it's lightly more expensive, and at the same time, it has the same amount of functions, practically anyway. Meanwhile, it gets the look and the building experience better, which is a bit crucial because that's a lot of what you're spending on. Building it and also how it looks. And the Bugatti simply is a better set here. But it's very, very close with the Porsche. And looking back to 2016 when Porsche first released this set, they did a fantastic job. And I do mean a fantastic job at making this set. It's very, very good, especially for 2016. But those 2 years between 2016 and 2018 where from the first ever, you have a second sort of shot at a UCS quote-unquote car with the Bugatti Chiron, there are a lot more improvements that you can obviously see. But from the Bugatti Chiron onwards, the improvements do become less and less obvious simply because Lego is more just, they've sort of refined it a lot more. They do a little bit more refining, and mainly they just change the cars that are made. Maybe after this, maybe they add new functions or whatever, but most of the time, it's just making a car like this, but for the latest car model that comes out. And apart from that, that's pretty much it. Let me know down below what your thoughts are on this comparison. Which set do you rather? Again, let me know down below. If you enjoyed the video, please smash the like button. If you want to see more content just like this, please subscribe. I hope you guys have a truly awesome day and keep building.